first item, Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make an addition to the agenda, two addition. Item 20, 1-year extension on the oil contract. And item 21, appointment of a deputy treasurer interim.
Second.
A motion and second, any discussion? All those in favor of adding those two items? Unanimous. Rules of order, we follow rules of order and any other rules that are adopted by the council. Just one addition, prior to the last agenda item, which will be number 21, councilors will have an opportunity to speak up to 3 minutes on any subject that's not on the agenda. So if you choose to do so, you can do it at that time. And so that will be just before we adjourn. Item 4, adoption of minutes from the following meetings of the Ellsworth City Council, 8/15/22, regular council meeting.
Motion to accept?
Motion?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Item 5, city manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, councilors. Good evening. Just a couple of quick announcements. This weekend is the Autumn Gold celebration throughout the city of Ellsworth, and there'll be all sorts of events all throughout the city over the weekend. So, and for a full list of the events, you can visit the ellsworthchamber.org, Chamber of Commerce website, and they have a full listing of all of the events that are taking place over the course of the weekend. Also, just wanted to let folks know that absentee ballots can be requested now. However, ballots do not arrive until October 8th-ish, somewhere around that date. So if you request them now, please don't expect to see them in the mail until mid-October. One request will generate both the state and city ballots. And finally, I just want to let the citizens know that tax bills did go out. They all are out, but they were late this year due to some issues with our software, but they are out, and we have suspended the late interest charges until after October 6th. That's all I have, sir.
Councilor O'Halloran.
Why was there not something put in the envelope saying that when I opened my tax bill, it was already overdue and there was no explanation? Why did the city not stuff the envelope with an extension notice?
Well, sir, because that would have extended the lateness even further, and we did what we could through social media and other methods to notify the public that those any additional fees would be waived until October 6th.
It's unfair to open a bill that's overdue.
Which is exactly why we suspended the late fees until October 6th.
Any other questions, comments? Councilor Blanchett.
Last month, the city continued its annual program of restoring the city's original graveyard, the old burying ground behind the Congregational Church. We hired a professional restorer for 3 days at a cost of, I believe it was just under $3,000 for everything. In return, the city they paid for one person. We got a minimum of 4 professional restorers that showed up every day. They were all volunteers. Over the period of 3 days, between the paid restorer and the volunteer restorers, we completed 42 stones, cemetery stones that were broken, lying down, and in a few cases buried. These are the stones of Ellsworth's veterans, Ellsworth's founders, Ellsworth's very earliest citizens. The program will continue, I understand, next year. And in the 3 years, I believe it is, that we've been doing it, we've restored over 100 graves. And they're all standing now, facing the sun as they once did. That's it.
Thank you. Item 6, committee reports. Any councilors attend a committee meeting since our last meeting? Seeing none. Item 7, citizens' comments. This is a portion of the agenda where citizens can make a comment on anything that's not on the agenda. If it's on the agenda, you'll have a chance to speak at that time. But if you'd like to speak, just go up to the podium, say your name.
Tony, could you hand those up, please? Good evening, councilors. I'm John Linehan. Been in Ellsworth for 74 years. And like Councilor Halloran says, I received my tax bill in the mail this last week, and I was in shock when I opened it up with the size of the increase in it. I'm here to talk about taxes tonight. I'm handing out something to you right there. I am running for the House of Representatives in our district. I'm also running for the City Council. Finances is one of my, if not my most important issue this time around. And I am concerned about our finances in our city, in our state, in our country. And I believe we're in trouble financially. I was disappointed with the vote on the budget, that most of the people on the council voted for a fairly substantial increase in the budget, which I believe has raised our taxes way higher than it should be. I've been talking to a lot of people over the last couple of weeks who are unhappy with the cost of living. High inflation, high gas prices, high fuel prices, high electric prices, and on and on. And some things we can't control, but other things we can. And one thing we can control is our taxes. So I'm here really to fight for my taxes and for the taxpayers of every other citizen here in the city of Ellsworth. The open house I'm inviting you to is going to be on September 30th. Friday night, Constitution Hall, 6 o'clock. And I'll have more specific information on what I think we need to do with our finances. There'll be an open mic, not for me, for anybody that comes. I'll be up front and I'll handle any question that's asked from any council member, any person or citizen in the city of Ellsworth, that I think is some very easy solutions on how to take care of our finances here in the city of Ellsworth. And it boils down to one statement. Your spending determines your ending, whether you're an individual, whether you're a city, whether you're a business or whatever. And I believe we've been not paying attention to the spending here in the city of Ellsworth from a council's position. So I'm running for the city council, and I'm running on one pledge right here. There's a lot of issues we could talk about, but I believe from talking to people out there, everybody is hurting so much financially. I'm already talking to people wondering whether they're going to have enough food to eat, enough fuel oil to heat their home. They're already making some tough decisions and trying to lay up for the future for this winter. But there's just not simply enough money to go around for our citizens here in Ellsworth. So here is what I'm going to run on right here. A City of Ellsworth tax reduction pledge. One sentence. I, John Linehan, the undersigned, pledge to not vote for any City of Ellsworth budget that doesn't have a minimum of a 5% budget reduction across the board for every city department. And I'm going to have more suggestions than that, but I believe we can very easily just look at every department we've got and say, not micromanage, just say who's in charge of that department. I expect the budget to be 5% less. And that will translate into some real estate taxes that I think would help people financially, that I think really need help. I've got these printed off if anybody like them. I know some of you guys are running for re-election. I hope anybody that's running for election or re-election on the City of Ellsworth Council would sign that pledge and take a strong look at it. I think it's the most important issue facing our cities, our finances, and how we handle it. So I would encourage you to take a look at it. I've got some blank copies of that. I just made them up today, printed it off myself. Proud to sign it, and I'll be running number one on reducing our taxes and other expenses here in the city and also in our state. Thank you very much.
Councilor
Are
Caplan.
we able to ask a question?
Come on.
So, I like the idea, but when you're at council one of the things you're looking at are union budgets, union contracts. And so you start at a base, and because the union contracts, labor cost automatically goes up. And with that, unemployment insurance, workers' comp insurance, et cetera, automatically are increased by those negotiated contracts.
Yep.
How would you suppose changing that?
I think you have to look at all the budgets. That's one of the items, is the union cost expenses. You need to take the budget, which I have not done, take a line-by-line budget and go down through every area. If there's any area in there, which I know there are, that need to be done, you make a decision, you put it up to the council vote, and you try to make a motion for that item to be reduced or eliminated from your budget. So it's by looking at it from my perspective, from running businesses for many years and watching financial statements, you look at each individual item and not micromanage the department, but you make it start out 5% deduction right there. Some things are fixed, you probably can't change it, although some things you can. And I believe 5% is a very minimal budget. I think you can do 10%, but I'm willing to commit to 5% in there until I review every line-by-line item budget in there.
That's fair.
The problem, I thought I could do that too. I really did.
Well, you can if
And-
you're in a majority. When you're in a minority, I've noticed the council votes have been 4-3, 4-3, 4-3, the wrong way on spending. So I'm convinced that if we can put two more of the people, there's 3 open seats, if we can get 2 more people that have the same concept that I have, hopefully that you had as well, then 4-3 votes will make the difference in the city council.
What I have found is that if the labor cost is fixed, we can't change that. What we are sacrificing are services. For example, pavement for the roads is gonna cost a certain amount. Now, if we have that fixed labor cost, but 5% reduction, that means less roads get done, less plow trucks, less services, if you will. So
What is the total percentage? I haven't looked at the budget. What is the total percentage, for example, of those labor costs of the total budget?
they're higher.
But I mean, is it 30% or 25% of the total
So-
budget?
70.
70%? Okay,
70 to 75% is labor costs.
okay.
So-
So
Just-
the 70%, go ahead.
In terms of this discussion, do you have any other questions, or, I mean, it's...
No, I'm
it's
just, I was interested in how we're gonna do that, so.
So, I mean,
I
that,
like
that's something that I think can happen outside of this meeting, in terms of if you want to get that information. sure.
Friday night, September 30th, 6 o'clock. If you're really interested, I'd be more than happy to address it in more detail like that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak?
Just real quickly, I wanted to thank the council again for supporting activities of the grant, especially the free waterfront concerts this summer. We also threw in Shakespeare in the Park just to float it out there and see how it did. And in 2019, we had over 1,200 people who came down and enjoyed free activities at the waterfront. And we had to cancel one of them this summer, and if we hadn't had to cancel it, I think we would have hit that same number. So about 1,200 to 1,500 people come down on those Friday nights, enjoy live music on the harbor. If you haven't done it before, it's a really fantastic evening. People see each other, they hang out together, they buy food, it's free, and you see all these wonderful people that look so forward to it. And you should be proud of that program, and thank you again for sponsoring it. And I mentioned the city a lot when we promote it, because that's important. So thank you for your support of the waterfront concerts. We'll do it again next year. And Shakespeare in the Harbor. Thank you.
Councilor Helen?
You mentioned that this is the part of the meeting that allows citizens to go to the podium and speak about any topic. Would you allow this citizen to do that?
Councilor Helen, I will remind you that the council approved a rule that does not allow councilors to speak from the podium. However, as you will also note, that I said earlier the beginning, that councilors, any councilor, at the end of the meeting, will have an opportunity to speak for 3 minutes on any subject you wish that's not on the agenda, which exercises your freedom of speech rights. The council has the right to determine certain procedures. That's not a violation of your freedom of speech, and you may exercise that later in the evening.
So the answer to my question?
I think I just answered your question.
So I'm not allowed to speak as a citizen like every other citizen?
I think you are interpreting it the way you want to. Those are your words.
May I speak from the podium as a citizen?
I will defer again to the rule that the council passed. Maybe, Councilor Heller, why don't you tell us what the rule was that the council passed last meeting?
I'm asking you a question,
Well, I just asked you a question, so,
and you're not answering mine, and I'm not answering yours.
well, there we go. We have a stalemate.
Moving right along.
Anybody else like to speak? Item 8, presentation of awards. There are no awards this evening. Item 9, schedule workshop for the charter review. Manager Mosher.
Yes, so we do have a date scheduled this Thursday for the charter review. And we were going to look to schedule potential dates for the other two issues which are still outstanding for workshops. One being the ARPA funding educational workshop for the council and the citizenry about what those monies can be spent on. And then the other workshop was for the issue with Green Lake and floating structures. So we attempted to schedule a Green Lake workshop back on the 25th of August, but we didn't get good counselor response to availability for that date, so that was canceled at that date. Now, obviously with summer being over, not such a pressing concern, but we do need at some point to schedule that workshop so we can get guidance from the council as to whether there's any tolerance whatsoever for a ordinance, and if so, what that ordinance may look like. And then the ARPA funding is still an outstanding workshop that we need to schedule. I'm not sure that between now and the election, either workshop's necessarily appropriate, based on the fact that post-election, the council makeup may be significantly different, and both workshops are not pressing matters that need to be addressed immediately. But certainly, if the council wishes to schedule those, perhaps we can work out a date this evening, because the email sent around to council for workshop dates doesn't always produce good results.
Isn't that item number 19 on the agenda?
Is it later in the agenda?
It's on 19.
So that will just be a preview, so we can set the dates at that time.
Yep.
And just responding to an email, the agenda, it was not an agenda item, the update during the committee meetings and the Manager Mosher's report, those are updates in terms of things that have been happening in the city. Those are standing items and they cover a lot of areas. So the update on that Council Blanchette provided was an update on activities taking place in the city, and it goes under that category. I just want to make one more comment to Councilor Halloran. You implied that it was me making a decision. I just want to remind you that as chair, my role is to enforce the rules that the council sets, that those are our rules, not my rule, and that's what I am going by. Consent agenda. All items with an asterisk are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless the council member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Item 10, Council Order Number 091900, request of the City Clerk for approval on the time of polling places open for the November 8th, 2022 State of Maine General Election and City of Ellsworth Municipal Election as 8 a.m. Item 11, Council Order Number 091901, request of the City Clerk for appointment of wardens and ward clerks for the 4 voting districts within the City of Ellsworth for the November 8th, 2022 State of Maine general election and City of Ellsworth municipal election. Does anyone want to remove any of those items?
You got 2 more.
Oh. Sorry, they did not have the asterisks. Request of the Historic Preservation Commission, number 12, request of the Historic Preservation Commission to appoint Peyton Maddox Wilbur as a regular member with a term to expire 6/30/2023, and Linda Furlot Grindle as a regular member, term to expire 6/30/2024. This leaves 2 alternates with terms to expire 6/30/2023. And item 13, request of the Recreation Commission to appoint Melinda Workman as a regular member, term to expire 6/30/2023.
Move as presented.
Second.
Motion is second.
Can I just ask one quick question, which was just that on the appointment of the wardens and ward clerks, there was no warden for Ward 2, is that okay? Does that,
We're still working. We have a potential confirmation, but she wasn't able to get back to us, but at the bottom of my memo, you'll note that it says all other voters as necessary.
yeah, okay, okay.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous? New business, public hearing and action on the applications for the following licenses. Madam Clerk, are everything in order? Provender LLC DBA Provender, 112 Main Street for renewal of a City Class C license, victual and liquor, and renewal of a state restaurant Class 1, 2, 3, 4 malt, spiritus, and vinous liquor license. This is a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing. Public hearing is open. Anybody like to speak? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed.
Move as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. The Grand, 165 Main Street for renewal of a state Class 3 and 4 malt and vinous license. This is a public hearing. Open the public hearing. Public hearing is open. Would anybody like to speak? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed.
Move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Louise Joy and Thomas Joy, DBA Edward Joy and Sons, 129 North Street for renewal of a city junkyard automobile graveyard permit. This is a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing. Public hearing is open. Anybody wish to speak? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed.
Move to approve.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. James B. Card 2, the second, DBA Jimbo's Junkin, 62 Kylie's Way for renewal of a city junkyard automobile graveyard permit. This is a public hearing. Open the public hearing. Public hearing is open. Anybody wish to speak? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed.
Move to approve.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Item 15, Council Order Number 091902, request of the Public Works Director to award the winter salt supply contract.
Good evening, councilors. Lisa Sekulich, Public Works Director. On Wednesday, September 7th, the City of Ellsworth accepted bids for the supply of winter salt. 6 RFPs were requested. That resulted in 2 bids and 1 decline letter. The summary of bids, that New England Salt Company was our low bidder at $78.45 per ton, and then the second was Morton Salt Company at $79.77 per ton. I am requesting to go with the low bidder, New England Salt, who has supplied us with salt for the last 3 years and have been good to work with.
Move to approve the request of Public Works Director to award 2023 winter salt supply to New England Salt Company at $78.45 per ton of delivered road salt. The contract amount to be funded from the Highway Department operating budget.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Councilor O'Halloran.
I would just add that New England Salt Company is in Winterport, Maine, and the other one is in Ohio, right?
New
Ohio?
England Salt is actually, I believe, in Hamden, somewhere over there.
Okay, it says Winterport. So.
That may be their main office. I think we actually get it out of,
But they're a Maine-based company and they're the
yes,
ones in
yes,
Ohio.
they are local. Yep.
Councilor O'Halloran.
I'm wondering how many ton that you purchase. I'm in favor of the lower price, obviously, but could you tell us, what does this compute to for dollars? And how many ton are you purchasing?
Last year, we used approximately 2,670 tons.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Item 16, council order number 091903, request of the Public Works Director to award a medium-duty plow truck chassis bid.
Sorry, I forgot. I'm asking to remove that item without prejudice. In reviewing of the bids that we received, we wanted to rethink our option. So we're going to withdraw those bids and then go back out to bid.
Move to withdraw.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Discussion. Councilor O'Halloran.
What kind of numbers are we talking about to prepare us for the next time you're in front of us?
Oh, I would hate to say it because they were gonna completely change what we're asking for, so.
Could you say?
Hmm?
Could you say?
We're gonna be sending it back out to bid.
What were the numbers that came in, is what I'm asking.
So we originally went out to bid for just a chassis. And we got in the range of 85 to 105,000, about that, without a dump body. We are changing the vehicle we're asking, and it's gonna change the gearing, so it's gonna be completely different.
And the delivery date was a
Delivery date
significant
was a
problem.
good factor, as well as just, I don't think what was bid was exactly what we were originally thinking. So, we're gonna reassess and go back out to bid.
Councilor.
Is that gonna delay the availability for winter?
The bids right now for the stuff that was turned in, they are looking at November of 2023 for deliveries. So it's not going to change much.
So as long as that.
Well,
doesn't-
potentially, if we go out for something different, there may be something available sooner, which was part of the factor.
Thank you.
You got it covered without the vehicle, right?
Oh, we'll make it. We always do.
I got a old plow truck you can use if we need it.
That assumes it snows. It might not snow.
We're
I heard
getting
of-
snow.
I heard of a town that's gonna use its cement trucks for, concrete mixer
They
trucks.
do
for
that in
mine.
places.
Well,
I'd
hey,
do-
you
I'd
gotta
do
do
it.
what you gotta do sometimes, right?
I'd love it. Plow my way to my pump job, be perfect.
Any other questions? Seeing none. All right, all those in favor?
Thank you.
It's tabled.
I hope to be back next month.
Item 17, discussion and potential action on adopting a community resilience partnership resolution.
So, good evening, council. I'll start out speaking about this effort that the staff has been working on, and there are several staff members here who can answer additional questions that you may have. This funding opportunity was brought to our attention through Woodard and Curran, who we've been working with closely to help find resources out there available to fund many of the needs that the city has, particularly in infrastructure, whether it be water, wastewater, or stormwater management. And this is a unique opportunity. It was created last year by the governor's office in the state, and through becoming a member of this partnership, It affords us the opportunity initially for a grant opportunity for $50,000, but it then opens up the door for us, if we are accepted as a member of this partnership, it opens up the door for us to access lots of other resources, funding resources that ordinarily, without being a member of this partnership, we would not have access to. And so as part of this process, the city went through, staff went through a self-assessment, which the staff identified what they felt were needs of the city in the areas that were identified under this partnership. We also held a public hearing last week where the public was invited to come in and speak to areas of concern that they have. And finally, there was also a survey that was circulated through social media and other means to the community for their input as well. And then through that process, the information was gathered from staff as well as from the citizenry, and some priorities were identified for the city. And just to kind of outline what some of those priorities were that were identified, there was interest in investing in essentially in electric automobiles or transportation, embracing the future of transportation, was one of the top ranked by both citizens and the employees or the within the city. Protect the environment and improve natural climate solutions was another one that was identified. Reduce emissions through clean innovations. Build healthy and resilient communities, and invest in climate-ready infrastructure. So as we're looking through, and you're looking through some of the information about the Community Resiliency Partnership, you know, we quickly realized as a group that a lot of the things that are identified within this partnership as being priorities, the city has already committed resources to many of the different activities. For example, our solar agreement, solar and green energy is a focal point of this partnership. EV charging stations, which we currently have in the city, and are pursuing additional charging stations as well. Tree planting, we have planted trees on High Street, and also worked with the Green Ellsworth with their tree growth up in the city. And of course, the city forest was identified as a parcel of land that the city has designated for conservation and also protection of our water source. So a lot of the things that are identified throughout this, throughout the information dealing with the Community Resiliency Partnership, the city is committed to. So what we're hoping for tonight is that the council will see to it to adopt this resolution so that the city staff can continue the process of moving forward with the application for the partnership and essentially the application for the grant to access additional funding for the many needs that we have.
One of my concerns is this survey, a lot of the questions were put in such a way that it's got kind of a confidence bias and self-selection bias. 56 respondents out of 9,000 residents. And we're going to adopt a resolution that's going to affect 9,000 residents. And basically, I mean, some of the stuff is great, as far as clean energy, but there's reduction in energy use by the city, zoning restrictions, which if I own property and I want to develop that property, and now I can't because of new zoning restrictions based on habitat or what could be perceived as a wetland, and even a culvert or a ditch could be considered runoff wetland. And I'm really concerned about anything that's going to restrict private property rights. And it's also looking at moving people from the outer areas, 30% green space. There's a lot in here that is not for everyone, including, looking at the reduction in energy use through smart meters and heat pumps and et cetera. And we just saw that in Colorado during the heat wave, where the company that programmed the smart meters and the thermostats literally would not, they overrode it so that people couldn't even adjust their own thermostat. A company was deciding that for them to save on energy because they didn't have enough energy infrastructure to support the need at the time. We're not there yet. I'm not ready to commit to something like that yet. I just think that we're going so full force into the green energy, and it talks about, fisheries and wetlands and things like that, and relying more on wind and solar. I look at, for example, the lobster people, they're, protecting wildlife and things on those lines, and it literally talks about that. And then, they're saying, well, we need to change all the gear. Yet if you look at the northern right whale, the thing that was circulating today is the amount of northern right whales that are allowed to be killed for the wind project is 20 versus the number of lobstermen that have actually entangled right whales is 0, but we're going to impact them. And this is all in the same grouping of everybody's jumping full force into the wind and solar bandwagon without considering how it affects everybody.
So, if I may, I think the point to be made is that by entering into this partnership, we're not committing to anything. The only thing we're committing to is to doing better. We're committing to striving to do better, whether it be, and we're committing to striving to do better in the areas of which we identify as priorities. So amongst the staff, one of probably the top priority that we have discussed pursuing funding for is stormwater management. We know we have extreme issues with stormwater management at the current levels in this city. And if we anticipate and expect that those storms are going to become more intense, and we're going to see even greater amounts of water out of storms in the future, and we already have drainage issues now. If we don't do anything about that, we're going to be in a worse situation. So that's one of the priorities that the staff has identified as something that we would want to pursue funding, and this would grant us access to funding that otherwise we would not be able to access.
However, at the same time, it also talks about when you have apartment buildings being built, that you have to include EV charging stations as part of the regulations to get the permits, heat pumps as part of the regulations to get the permits, and it's pigeonholing people into doing something that maybe they don't want to do.
But we're not committed to doing any of those things. Those are merely suggestions that the
However,
state is saying, these are concepts, these are ideas that you may want to pursue.
I'll give you an example of something that pigeonholed the city. The water department, the place, the water treatment facility. Ellsworth had to give up a certain amount of green space in order to build the water treatment center. 5-10 years down the road, all of a sudden we want to put handicapped accessible equipment on the playground at Knowlton Park, over a mile away from the treatment facility. But we can't, because we can't scratch that earth, because it's part of the
Wetland mitigation.
wetland mitigation, green space, etc. So when you pigeonhole into something, you have to be careful what you're going into down the line. And yes, it would open up grant funding, but every single grant is funded by somebody who has an agenda, who has a specific thing that they want you to do. And when you accept money, you have to look at all the strings attached, because otherwise, those strings, you just become a puppet and they're moving you along.
Counselor Hanson?
I just want to commend city staff for doing such a complete job in finding this grant opportunity and this opportunity to partner with the state. We have a lot of things that we try to accomplish in this city, and a lot of needs, a lot of infrastructure needs, as Chief Mosier was saying. And our options are either let those things crumble, raise taxes and have the taxpayers pay for it, or find other sources of funding. This is very obvious to me as another source of funding. I think it would be irresponsible for us not to use the work that the city staff has done in order to get the money from the state that helps us to fix the things we know we need to fix without putting the burden on our citizens.
Counselor Lyons?
I'm just kind of feeling like maybe it didn't get brought to the attention of everybody if only 50 people voted to, or responded to it, and like there is close to 9,000 people. So maybe if there's a way to get it more so that more people saw it before it. Because it is kind of puzzling that only 50 people seem to have looked at it or whatnot.
Counselor O'Hara?
How much was Woodard and Curran paid to discover this?
They're contracted, they're working on other projects, and they brought this to our attention merely as an opportunity for us to pursue funding, which would essentially, in essence, many of the projects they're currently working on our wastewater, our stormwater treatment system. And so funding from this would potentially further that effort. So they weren't paid anything to bring this to our attention. They brought it to our attention because they know what our needs are and they know what the future costs are going to be in order to get our system in a position where we can handle the stormwater that we currently have, let alone what future may bring.
Good evening, Jana Richards. I'm the Economic Development Director for the city. I was one of the staff members that worked on this, particularly with the public engagement piece. And the rationale behind that is because economic development really touches upon a lot of the explanation for why we go after a lot of the funding sources that we need. So, you know, in terms of the infrastructure, we need good, solid, reliable infrastructure to be able to keep developing the city of Ellsworth in the rate that it has been developing. And so that's why I get asked to help write some of the narrative for the grants that we write to support the decisions that we make in going after additional funds for the city. So that's why I'm here, but also I just, Councilor Lyons wanted to speak to, yes, 56 obviously is a low number given that we have 9,000 citizens. We did do a press release with the Ellsworth American and other media sources to try to get the word out other than social media, since we know some people in the community don't have social media or they don't look at social media. This was posted to the city's website and we had flyers around City Hall. The other point I'd like to make is that the survey is actually not even a requirement of the public engagement. It's something that us as staff decided that, hey, that would be another way of reaching out to the community, because sometimes people don't have time to come to forums, which we held last week. So we decided we would do a survey tools to see if we could get more responses that way. So we tried to do the digital avenue of creating the survey to get some responses, as well as an in-person public forum. And all of those were fairly well advertised. And like I said, we did a public press release to do the best that we could to get public input. So I just wanted to provide that information.
Hi, Public Works Director Seklich. I too helped work on this, as stormwater is near and dear to my heart. One of the things I did want to mention, talking dollars to Councilor Holleran, we do have money in the local roads budget to do stormwater evaluation So if we were to get this $50,000 from this grant, it would be $50,000 more that I could use for something else in the local roads budget.
I've read every one of these. The things that I'm not on board with is trying to get people out of their cars and into buses. You know, everybody has different schedules, and they don't always go along with a bus. And nowhere does it address some of the key issues that are facing our citizens, like drug abuse, mental illness. I mean, there's so many other things that are happening in our city right now. We've got more homeless than ever. Property taxes are higher than ever. You know, the rental crisis is of concern. And when you're looking at putting in regulations that are going to decrease construction of new housing in a time when we've got homeless and rent prices are through the roof, I just don't think that this is the time for that. I think that some of it is worthwhile as far as looking at cleaner options. I'm not against clean energy. I'm just saying we can't just go rushing into things like this at a time when we need more housing to be built, not restrict people from building it and putting in regulations that are going to make it more costly to build.
Guess I want to also comment on, so on the resolution language, it says that the following language is provided for the municipal resolution. The 3 preamble and resolution sections on this page are required. So it's what we have are requirements that's being imposed on the city, which includes, commits to participating in the Community Resilience Partnership, which supports community leadership in reducing greenhouse gas emissions and increasing resiliency to extreme weather and climate change impacts. What I share a similar concern, sitting here today, I don't have all the information in terms of what is required. Can we get out of it if the city decided to opt out after we opt in? To understand the implications of it. And we've sat here as a council before talking about the comp plan and connecting all these dots, and now this is coming up in front of that. And so for me, it's a lack of information and understanding around what is really required by this. The state would not have required these 3 statements to be maintained if there wasn't some sort of expectation about participation. And so I don't know if you have that information tonight. I don't know how long we have to make a decision to join or not join, but the lack of information is the problem for me. The content, I think it has a lot of room for discussion in terms of what that looks like, because I think there are limitations in terms of what the city can and cannot do. You know, if the city imposed X and the state imposed X and the city can only do Y, and we sign on to this and the city said, well, you signed into it, you're going to do X. That's my question. So I don't know, where are we with having that kind of information to be able to make an informed decision about it?
So in terms of the timeline, both of our grant application as well as the application to become part of the partnership is due by midnight tomorrow. And then in terms of what is additionally required, this program was designed to help municipalities combat some of these, or implement these actions. There's no match if you are going to move forward with one of the community actions as listed in that big table that was provided for you. So up to $50,000, no match required by the city. The way that I would relate this is that, you know, the state requires you to have an up-to-date comprehensive plan. If you don't have an up-to-date comprehensive plan, you're not allowed to apply for certain grant applications, as well as you get docked if you do apply for certain grant applications. And let's say another municipality has an up-to-date comprehensive plan and you don't. they'll give that credit point to the municipality that does. So essentially, if the DOT has a really big infrastructure grant, which they do, and we go to apply for that, a municipality that's within the partnership will get a credit for being part of the partnership, whereas a municipality that does not will not get that credit, and therefore you become less competitive in the grant game, if you will. Aside from what is written here, there is no other commitments that we are aware of and that we would be subject to as a municipality.
Can we opt out?
It's just, we're asking for money. Why would we opt out of money that they want to give us?
No, I'm
That doesn't
talking-
make any sense.
Like if
No,
they,
let me
if-
be clear, Councilor Hanson. What I'm saying is, in the future, if we opted in, if we pass this resolution, accepted the $50,000 and move forward, if at some point down the road, the state said, now that you're in this partnership, you must do X, and we say, no, we don't want to do it, can we opt out? Or are we obligating ourselves to do certain things? That's my question, is I don't see anything in here that says what next. Is it just the $50,000 and that's it? And we get positive points? Or are we obligating the city to do certain things? That's the question. That's my only issue. And without an answer to it, I can't sit here in good faith and vote for something that I don't have information on. That's my only question.
so from a legal standpoint, this is what you would be legally obligated to, what is put here in the resolution. Because that would be what you would be voting on as a council. You're not voting on anything else other than that.
Councilor O'Halloran.
If this is adopted, there's no guarantee that there's a $50,000 reward. Am I correct?
You are
Correct.
correct.
So it just qualifies you for a reward. Thank you.
Jana, is there a way, and I'm not sure how much information is getting out to the public, but like we just said, there's 9,000 people, 50 people obviously participating in this. Is there some better way to get information out to people?
I mean,
I hate seeing like, even like an election, like the school board, you know,
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And 100 people out of 9,000 people show up, you know, I
Yes.
don't know, is it because 9,000 people isn't hearing about it, or is it because?
it's interest, if you will. So, for example, with the broadband survey, we sent postcards direct to everybody's house with a link on there, told them to come to City Hall if they couldn't get a good connection. We ended up getting 450. That's a good response rate, but it's not 9,000. You'll never get,
better than
I'm sorry,
50
I'm
though.
gonna go on record by saying you'll probably never get 9,000 out of 9,000.
No, but if you could get like 4,000, that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, we've incentivized people in the past by sending out postcards saying, you know, you'll get in a drawing to get a gift card to Hannaford, let's say. We've done things like that. It's really, are you interested in the topic, yes or no? And if you are, then you're gonna respond, and if you're not, then most likely we won't get a good response rate, unfortunately.
I can
Jessica.
add a comment just to support Jana. As being in the business of trying to tell everybody everything that's going on, and at this point, I'd say everybody's sick of me. They've heard me everywhere and seen me everywhere, and yet you'll still have people tell you, I had no idea you were doing that show. Like, what? So I commend the responses you even got.
Or even trying to get responses.
Council
Yes,
Caput.
we're even trying to get responses. 99% of people, unless it is absolutely something they want to know.
Council
they're
Caput.
not gonna get it.
The list of strategies or the list of community actions, as stated in the, it says that we would agree to the community actions, one of which is incorporate a goal into conservation plans of conserving 30% of the land in the community, including undeveloped town property, with a priority on addressing conservation gaps relative to the high biodiversity, blah, 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 blah. That's 30% of our,
So these are suggestions of things that a municipality could do. I don't even think we have a conservation plan, to be honest with you, at this point. What the resolution has is it asks for 2 to 6 actions that your community will prioritize. And if you have a copy of the resolution in front of you, I believe we listed 5 that after speaking at the community forum and through the survey and then doing a staff self-assessment, we came up with 5 that are actually applicable to the city of Ellsworth that would help us tremendously in terms of moving forward with some community actions.
But it doesn't say that we're not obligated to all of these different strategies.
We're not. I mean, first of all, a lot of those community strategies would have to come before this council to be implemented anyways. Like, if you were ever to change the building code, I mean, that would have to come before the council as a policy change. That's not something we can do as staff. But the 5 that are listed within that resolution pertain to doing a vulnerability assessment on cities' infrastructure to make it more climate ready, which we're already in motion on doing quite a bit of that already through Public Works. There's some in there about low impact design for stormwater, which means you give a developer the option to either do traditional stormwater management, or they could use like biocells and things, rain gardens and things like that. It's just giving them an option to be able to do the best for stormwater management with in their development. So these are really more applicable to the city and what the city has going on rather than some of the suggestions in there that, for example, Machias and Deer Isle are part of this partnership. They strategized and prioritized more coastal erosion type mitigation strategies because they're right on the coast and they have a lot of issues with sea level rise and coastal erosion. Whereas here in Ellsworth, we don't have, at this point, we don't have that significant problem. Ours is more localized flooding and issues with like High Street, Water Street, those areas of town.
So aside from the $50,000, setting
Yes.
that aside, why can't these initiatives be carried forward without signing this partnership?
We are already doing them. It's just a matter of, like Lisa said, with limited resources, getting an additional $50,000 could really push us over. And like, for example, one of them is the community actions is working on an LED lighting. We're already paying for that on parts of Myrick Street. If we could get $50,000 and then potentially get more money through Efficiency Maine, we could do more of the city, which in the end goes back on a savings to the taxpayer, just like the solar credit agreement helps save costs for electricity for the city, which then rolls back to the taxpayer.
But as Councilor Howland said, there's no guarantee about the $50,000.
That's right.
And outside of that, if you set that aside, the value is we can do all of this as a city without signing this partnership, and we have control over what we choose to do. With this, I feel like we don't know yet what is being asked of us. So I guess my question to you is why, outside of the $50,000, what's the value for us to sign this document?
It's not just $50,000 because there's other grant opportunities out there. I don't know what the DOT grant that we could be eligible for, but it's somewhere in the millions of dollars that we could help get for construction of infrastructure.
So, Andy Google, or Maine.gov website, some of the frequently asked questions could actually be helpful. First one is, what are the benefits of enrolling in this partnership? Tackling climate change is not easy. The Community Resilience Partnership offers many kinds of support for communities who are enrolled, regardless of size, capacity, and previous experience in climate-related projects. 1, the enrollment process is designed to help communities take stock of their current activities and to identify a few next steps based on their priorities. 2 tools, which we use during the process of public engagement, help structure early conversations and can illuminate potential near-term projects. 2, once enrolled, communities are eligible to apply for community action grants, to undertake additional planning efforts, or to implement the priorities identified during enrollment, which is the public engagement side of things. These grants are offered twice a year. Number 3, In addition to grants, enrolled communities have access to a regional coordinator who can help with developing future project ideas and then aid in researching and applying for grants, especially federal grants, which is the money she's talking about. And 4, enrolled communities may participate in training sessions hosted by regional coordinators as well as peer learning and networking opportunities. The other part I wanted to say is how this is funded, and this is a key thing for this grant. This source of funding for this grant is the biannual state budget. So applicants are strongly encouraged to utilize these grants as matching funds for federal grants. You can't match federal grants with federal money. You can match federal grants with state monies. This is strictly state money. You take this $50,000 that can be used as our match money for federal money. That's the money that we get. That's the big dollars that we're trying to get.
Councilor Hanson.
You guys have done a great job figuring this out, and you're finding money for our city to do the things that you know we need to do. It absolutely boggles my mind that there's any question about joining into this partnership. And one thing that didn't get mentioned in the frequently asked questions, but did get mentioned in here, is that one of the things that comes along with the partnership is a regional coordinator who works with the city to research and apply for potential federal funding. So there's actually like a human being that you get in this partnership who helps you guys to figure out where the federal money is. All this money is out there. There are cities that are using this money to make their city better. If we don't do this, it is just an absolute crime to the taxpayer.
Councilor Kaplan and Councilor Long.
So we only have till midnight tomorrow to decide on this? And, I mean, have you ever?
If we want to make this round. If we want to bring it back and come in for the next round, which is next spring, I believe, there's that option.
Yes, because I feel like I'm in a timeshare presentation and it's good today and today only. And then, there's buyer's remorse later, so.
That covered my question.
So there is a second round. Is there any?
This will be the
This
third
is the
round.
second round, but it comes out twice a year. So it'll, assuming it continues, depending on potentially what happens in November.
And we anticipate moving forward a bit with the comp plan, right, by that time?
Absolutely, but we're moving forward with other storm.
We're moving forward with stormwater, whether we get this $50,000 or not. I'm gonna continue, I think is something we all addressed during the local roads meetings, that stormwater is a major issue for the city, and so we will continue on that, whether we get the $50,000 or not. It'll just come out of the local roads budget versus the grant.
Councilor Hahn.
Is there one $50,000 award, or is there many?
There's multiple, so we could go after our quote-unquote stormwater this year, we could put in an EV charger next year. I mean, I'm just picking randoms, I'm not saying that's what you guys would vote on. And then we could go after something else, each grant round.
Yeah. The other thing too is that if we go in with, like, let's say we're in Lemoyne and Trenton, I'm just making this up, I'll decide, you can go in as a partnership and it changes from $50,000 to $100,000. So if you go in with multiple towns for, let's say, some sort of a regional plan or a multi-town plan, you can get more funding that way.
Councilor Hahn.
So, if this was to be adopted this evening, okay? When, if ever, would the city receive 50 grand?
So we would apply for it in September. Probably by December, I think we would know that if we were awarded or not. So I anticipate.
So it's a pretty fast
Yeah,
process then.
yes.
And if they voted no on this particular project, we could apply again in the spring for something different or refined or that kind of thing.
Councilor Hanson.
Move to adopt a resolution of the Ellsworth City Council regarding participation in the state's Community Resilience Partnership.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. Further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion fails. Item 18, Council Order Number 091904, request of the Public Works Director to enter into a lease agreement for the Water Department.
Good evening, councilors. I'm requesting to table this item as the lease agreement was just received on Friday, or potentially lease agreement, and it's at our lawyers being looked at currently. So I'm hoping to be back next month with a finalized lease agreement.
Move the table.
Motion. A second. Any discussion? Councilor O'Halloran.
What is the cost
There's
of
no
this lease
discussion on the
agreement?
table in motion.
Oh, yeah, wait, thank you. There's no discussion on a table. You can ask, no discussion on a table motion, so we have to vote. All those in favor of tabling? All those, it's unanimous. Table, Councilor O'Halloran, may I ask you a question?
What is the cost of this lease? You say it's going to the lawyer. Give us a number so we can be chewing on this.
Until we have a signed one,
There must be a number on it.
We're not negotiating the price, so we can give them the price.
right, I don't know it off the top of my head, and I would hate to speak out of turn. I believe it's
11 a square foot.
1050 or 11 a square foot, somewhere in there.
It's 11. I'm pretty sure it's 11 a square foot.
How many square feet?
That I don't know.
I think it's 4,200 a month, somewhere in there.
That's the number I'm looking for. Thank you. That's just trying
Again,
to-
just,
I understand.
I
I'm
don't
just
have it
trying
written
to
'cause I wasn't
get
prepared for that.
Something to work with here.
yep, it's somewhere, I know it's under 45, so 42-ish, I believe.
Thank you.
All right. Item 19, request to schedule dates for workshop meetings to discuss ARPA funding and expenses, and a second workshop to discuss floating structures.
So I already addressed those out of turn, so now I'll just
Looking for dates.
looking for dates.
Did the council want the staff to set the dates? Do you want let's start with the first question is, do you want to have these workshops prior to the election?
I mean, I do. We voted for the ARPA funding workshop back in January. We voted for the floating structure workshop in June, and that's a thing that's been being dealt with by the city council for the last 2 years. I just feel like we should just get this work done. So, I don't know if you want me to say, like, how about next Thursday, or whether, like, how we should do this.
I'm open to whatever.
This Thursday, we are meeting for charter review, so the following Thursday, we could meet for one of the other. I mean, I don't like coming here any more than anybody else does on extra days, but I just think we have to get this work done. So, I guess I could just make a random proposal for, I don't know, maybe we could even do them both in one workshop on, say, Thursday, the 29th.
Is that a motion?
Sure.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor of setting the 29th as a date for the workshops? All those opposed? Motion passes, so we'll set that date, 6 o'clock.
What is that, two Thursdays from now,
That's the 29th.
or Thursday and a half, or whatever?
And as we discussed, the workshops are not the same as a city council meeting. And certainly with the floating structures, we've had plenty of public hearing. So the workshops are intended for the council to have an opportunity to work with staff around these issues. Public comment will be limited, so we can focus on that work. The floating structures was to talk about an ordinance, get some clarification, and have that discussion. So I just want everybody to be aware of that. As we go into those workshops, that will be the focus. It is not going to be an open, long, hear a lot of comments that have been put forward before. That will happen should any of these move forward at the council meeting. Councilor Hanson.
The ARPA workshop, we were supposed to have someone from the MMA come and talk to us, so I can't imagine that you can just figure that out by a week from Thursday?
We'll get it
or-
figured out.
Okay.
They might be able to Zoom.
If we can't have an actual person, then we'll get PowerPoint presentation and we'll get the information that we need.
Item 20, a one-year proposal for a one-year extension on our oil contract.
Thank you, counselors. So you have the information in front of you. We were preparing to go out to RFP, and we were contacted by our current provider, No Frills, with an opportunity to lock in a rate at $3.69 for oil and $1.69.9 for propane. We've been hearing from multiple different sources that there's anticipated to be issue with availability of those products this winter. These prices are less than what the going market rate is currently. If you were to call for number 2 oil for propane, currently, last year, the city used 22,160 gallons of number 2 and 6,187 gallons of propane. The school department, which is included in this agreement, used astounding 79,672 gallons of number 2 and 5,703 gallons of propane. So asking tonight if the council would like to extend this agreement with No Frills for that price, or would prefer to go through the RFP process to see what other options are available for us. Yes, and he guarantees the gallons at those prices.
I'd probably go with that.
What is the current cost of heating oil? I have no idea.
Oh,
Personally, I just paid almost $4 a gallon 2 weeks ago.
our current
Thank you.
rate is considerably more.
Yeah, our current rate is.
Our current rate is $2.19.9, and for number 2 oil, and $1.39.9 for propane.
So that's more than our current rate.
Considerably more, yes, but those were rates from last year.
How long do you have to decide?
Well, he is asking for an answer, but the options are, A, we either agree to the terms, or we go through the RFP process, which will, hopefully, we could get it on the October agenda. Have to be a pretty short turnaround, but we may have to hold a special meeting if we can't get it on the currently scheduled October, November, rather than wait for November, because the current agreement expires October 1st.
Councilor Cap.
I believe the news says it's anticipated that heating oil prices will be extremely high this winter. So,
What are you paying now, $2.19?
$2.19 is what we paid
That
for
don't
last year.
sound close to right.
Councilor Hill.
How long has the city been using No Frills oil?
Well, the last RFP that we were able to find was from 2017, but this most recent agreement was from 2019, I believe.
This is a long-term agreement with satisfactory results.
Yes, we haven't had any issues as far as, missed deliveries or need for emergency deliveries. We did have one issue last year with a frozen line, which we addressed with No Frills this year, and they assured us that in the future, because we didn't have a service contract with them, but they assured us with this contract that in the future they would respond to that. It was an emergency situation. There was some confusion. They were going to respond, but not in a timely enough fashion, because it was critical infrastructure, but we've identified that as critical infrastructure, and with any future issues, they agreed to respond immediately, regardless of day or night, time of day. So that was the only real concern that we had amongst any staff or with the current service that's been provided.
Mr. Chairman, motion to approve the one-year extension to the heating oil contract for the 2023 year with no frills for $3.69 per gallon of number 2 heating oil and $1.699 for propane for the city of Ellsworth and Ellsworth School Department.
Second.
Okay, motion is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Item 21, appointment of a deputy treasurer. If you want to just,
Well, I guess I just, in light of recent resignations from the finance director and now the deputy finance director, we felt the need that there was definitely a need for some stability in that department, and current city clerk Tony Dyer has expressed an interest in learning the world of finance and has a very good base knowledge based on our systems and her extensive knowledge in municipal, the workings of municipalities and finances to some degree. So she has expressed an interest in that role, so we need a treasurer and a person responsible for finances, so I'm asking that she be appointed as interim deputy finance director and treasurer.
and this gets her another sticker, and she's only 10 stickers from filling every role that we have in the city.
In the city, that's correct. She will be maintaining her duties as city clerk with help from her deputy clerks, at least through the November election, because that's a significant undertaking for the city. And at such time between now and then, we'll make a decision as to what career path she chooses to pursue, whether it stays in finance realm or goes back to the clerk. So that's at least the immediate plan.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve Tony Dyer as interim deputy treasurer as
Second.
presented.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Councilor O'Halloran?
I trust we're gonna pay this young lady more money for more work? We discuss how much?
We can't hear, but we have discussed how much.
You have.
Yep.
And everyone's in agreement that that's fair?
Yeah.
That's all I need to hear.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. So,
We don't want you to be the next resignation, just so you know.
We'll be saying move to
before we
approve Tony as the interim city
adjourn,
manager.
if councilors would like to take an opportunity to
kidding.
make comments that are not on the agenda, you may do so now. You have approximately 3 minutes to speak about anything you'd like. Councilor Lyons.
I'd like to thank, I don't know if anybody noticed or not, but on Bridge Hill, the cannons, the balls got recently painted by Kenny Grant and his son KJ, who got some credits towards his high school community service, and they did a great job and they look great. And I'd like to thank them for that. And also Daniel Sullivan got a hold of me and he'd like to thank them also. So, thank you very much. And also Home Depot for supplying all the materials to do that project.
Other councilors. Councilor Kaplan.
I'm sure I'm not alone as a citizen of Ellsworth when I opened my tax bill and literally got sticker shock. My tax bill went from $9,000 to $12,000, just like that. $12,000 a year on a private road when I don't get trash pickup, don't get a school bus. Yes, I get schools, but $12,000 a year for property taxes because the property was valued higher, and all the work we did as a council to try to get the mill rate down was erased because of a buying frenzy for property in the state of Maine. And now, at the drop of a hat, that's $3,000 more, and I know I am not alone with that sticker shock. So I think that maybe at the next meeting, we could have our city manager ask our tax assessor to explain how that happened. And whether or not next year, now if the real estate market is plummeting, if we're all gonna get a tax break next year. I have that, and then also, I would be remiss if I didn't complain about the traffic on Water Streets, either coming into the city from the Bangor side, but more importantly, if that intersection is so bad, because when Jackson Lab lets out, everybody's going through that intersection, and people going all the way around, and we cut off that little cut through and put that outdoor park there. And anytime I've ever driven by there, I see maybe 3 or 4 people, if I'm lucky. Yet at peak traffic times, you probably had 20, 30 cars that are using that as a cut through. Now they're all going up School Street just to try to go that way. They're all going up Franklin Street to try to go up that way, just because that light takes so long. And the way it's designed, I don't think that it's keeping up with the current trends in our traffic. So that's just me complaining.
And I would just say, in addition to that, we all just sat here and turned down the city's opportunity to find money to fix traffic problems. Again, boggles my mind that we're gonna complain about taxes and then turn down opportunities from the state to fund some projects we need to do. Crazy.
So I just take this opportunity. I want to say thank you to the city staff. The earlier vote, it was not an indictment of the work that's being done in the city. And city staff, I think that being part of a municipal government and being a staff in that government, you are always getting criticized. Something isn't right, then you're going to hear that more than you're going to hear the positives. I think part of the role here is to understand that you're all doing the very best you can. And when we sit here as council trying to get information, those are questions. I don't think that we should be criticizing the staff. I think you are all doing working as hard as you can in a hiring environment that is very difficult, and you have positions that are unfilled. So I certainly hope that just because a vote doesn't go the way that you recommend, that you don't look at that as any kind of criticism on the work you're doing. Sometimes it's just based on the decision that we make individually, and then we move forward. So I just want to stress that, because I think sometimes city staff hear too much of the negative, and you should hear the positive, because I think more people in the city appreciate the work that you do every day to keep the city running.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
Before we do that, Councilor Heller, you seemed to earlier wanted to express your right to speak as a citizen. Are you now choosing not to do that?
I was denied that opportunity.
No, that's what we're doing right now.
Would you like to take this opportunity to express your views as a citizen, or are you declining? Do you not want to answer that question? You pressed me on questions, so. So we have a motion to adjourn, a second. All in favor? We're adjourned.